What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Will Rock MMA podcast.
Guys, we got 3 UFC bouts for UFC 230 in MSG.
Yes, sir.
That is bogus, man. Just totally bogus. But before we get into that, we'll just throw off some news for you guys. Darren Till versus Tyron Woodley has officially been booked for UFC 228 in Texas.
I wanted to see this fight more than I wanted to see Colby Covington, and I tell you why. Because although Colby Covington and Tyron Woodley have a bigger feud, which allows this to sell better, but I believe that the hardest fight for Tyron Woodley is Darren Till. I think it's a better fight as an MMA fan. As an MMA fan, I believe that Darren Till brings a better stand-up game than does Colby Covington. Maybe not the best wrestling, but it's going to be hard to take down Darren Till, and I believe it's going to be a stand-up fight. And because Darren Till's a little more aggressive, we're going to see Tyron Woodley start throwing them hands, which we have not seen in a while.
Well, I believe that at this point in Woodley's career, he needs to show up as a champion.
Right.
He just needs to show up. He needs to put on a show. He's playing it too safe, I feel. And at the end of the day, entertainment and love for a fighter is what gets him there. Now, granted, he's fighting the proper way of fighting to avoid getting hurt, to have longevity in the sport, which I commend. I think it's the right thing for him. But if he wants to have people talk about him like they talk about Colby Covington, whether it's good or bad, which mostly is bad, they need to start talking about this guy. Yeah. Woodley is one of the few guys that I can say is a true champion who's fought for a long time, has been a champion for a long time, and he's really made these guys look like they shouldn't be in the octagon with him, but not in an entertaining way.
Not at all.
In a very boring type of way. And the thing that I would say is, this is a blow to the UFC, and I'll explain. Colby Covington would have had more people sit down than Darren Till would.
For sure.
So, to me, this is a blow of a card. I'm not taking away from Darren Till. I'm not taking, because what he's been doing for such a short period of time, the amount of knockouts that he's had for a short period of time, for this a newcomer, he is, like you mentioned, very aggressive. What I think would be a better stand-up, well, I don't think, I know it would be a better stand-up fight for Tyron Woodley if Tyron decides to stand and bang. And hopefully that's what we see. Hopefully we get to see a mixture of the true wrestler that Tyron Woodley is, but also the power that he possesses in that right hand.
Which he definitely does. He just hasn't shown in his last few fights.
Yeah, man. So, something to look forward to. Let's talk about UFC 230 MSG, bro. I am so fucking pumped for this fight. Let's keep it low. Nah, we'll keep it low in the first fight.
All right.
Let's do Jacare versus Branch.
Now, we spoke about Jacare was one of the worst performances he had last time he stepped into the octagon.
Kevin Gastelum
made him look like he was like a 50-year-old man in that octagon. But we spoke about this before. I really did believe that Jacare coming back into the octagon was going to go directly to the top and maybe get a title fight. Gastelum stopped him. I don't know what Jacare we're going to see. But then again, I don't know what David Branch we're going to see. David Branch looked really well last performance that he fought. I believe that it's the best fight for both fighters. I don't have one over the other. I really don't.
So the great thing about great thing about Branch that I must say that I really like is that he was winning so many fights coming from Bellator. UFC ended up picking him up, bringing him to UFC, and the first fight that he took was Rockhold, and that was such a great fight for him.
Was it the first fight? Was it? I think.
Actually, no. That was his second fight. That was the second fight in the UFC. I apologize. You're right. And he ended up losing. He comes back from a loss.
But he came really close. So let's get that straight.
No.
He almost knocked out Rockhold.
But to Rockhold's defense, that was his first fight back from a long standout from injury. So Branch should have had the upper hand in that fight. Granted, he fought a bigger name and someone like Rockhold who's no joke, right? So anyways, he ends up losing this fight. He learned from this fight. He learned enough that he came into the next fight that he took and he ended up winning by TKO. It would be very interesting in how he could mark his name in by far. There's several weight classes. This is the stacked weight card there is. I don't think there's nothing more stacked than the welterweight division.
Yeah.
There's so many big names. If we're making a big hype for David Branch and Sakura, what is the next fights we're gonna be talking about, right? So Branch gets a big victory out of this, man. He could easily be one fight away from the title belt depending on how he wins. He could be 2 fights away from the title belt depending on how he wins. So this fight is a must-see for that weight class. Next fight, Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman, UFC 230 MSG as well.
And this is a rematch because they fought before. Chris Weidman had a really good chance of winning it. Last minute, he decides to throw a spinning back kick. Luke Rockhold grabs him, take him to the floor, and just ground and pound Chris Weidman. It's so interesting to see what type of fighter Chris Weidman would come into the octagon. Tremendous win from his last time he fought against Kevin Gastelum. Tremendous win. I'm so pumped for this fight because 2 of the top welterweights on the division, I believe that either one of them wins gets a title shot.
I mean, there's so much that goes into this. The great thing about this card is that Whittaker is still holding. Whittaker must, dude, that shows you how amazing Whittaker is if he's still the champion in this weight class. Yeah. If I was Whittaker, I'd be shitting myself, man. There's a bunch of animals in that weight class, and we're still not done talking about the welterweight for MSG. But if we're talking about Weidman versus Rockhold, it's unfortunate, but I feel like if Rockhold ends up taking another loss, might not be good on his book, and if Weidman takes a loss, might not be good on his book. So these 2 guys are in a must-win situation. My personal opinion.
It gets so scary because those 2 are great fighters in the UFC, and one of them takes a loss, it could set them back.
You get lost in the mix. There's too many. That card is too stacked. There's so many hungry animals coming up on that weight class that you could get lost in the mix. Your name could get tossed in there, and you'll be all the way towards the back.
That's true.
And you want to be top 5, top 6 in that division because if you're top 6, you're still the shit.
Absolutely, I agree.
All right.
Last but not least.
Oh Lord, bro. We got Joel Romero versus.
Damn, I forgot what the hell he's fighting.
We got Joel Romero versus Pablo Costa.
Now, Pablo Costa coming off a tremendous win. He just knocked out somebody. Who the hell did he just knock out?
Oh, fuck my life. I can't think. But
Chris, when you get the chance, please double check for us. Coming off a tremendous win, Costa knocking out his last opponent. Uriah Hall knocked out Uriah Hall. That's who he fucking knocked out. Tremendous performance. He took some punishment in the process, but showed his stand-up game is no joke. Has tremendous power in his left and right hand, and now he's going against a guy who I believe is one of the more technical fighters. Joel Romero, as we know, silver medalist in the Olympics in judo. Tremendous wrestling skills. And we've seen him knock people out with his hands, Luke Rockhold, and we've seen him knock out people with his knees, Chris Weidman. So, and that performance that he put up last fight against Whittaker came so close for him to have the belt, and some people even gave it to him.
I had Romero winning that fight. I like what the UFC has done. I think the UFC gave him a good amount of break, brought him back versus an up-and-coming fighter.
Absolutely.
And this is almost reminds me of that Yaris Rodriguez versus... You said BJ Penn? No, the opposite, versus Frankie Edgar.
Oh, right.
The veteran fighter versus the really young fighter. And Romero could eat... yeah, you switch this up. Romero could eat Costa alive, or Costa could be like, Romero, you're not in my level.
Yeah.
This fight, if you think about it,
it has more applications to Joel Romero. That will be his second loss back-to-back, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Second loss back-to-back, and we have to understand something. Yes, this guy looks like a superhero, but he is in his 40s. We cannot forget Joel Romero is in his 40s.
I will say these are the guys that both of them have the best bodies going into this fight.
100%. But with that being said, man, it's very unfortunate if he loses this fight, but I don't see Joel Romero losing this fight. If he's going and he's booking himself against Costa, he's looking for a knockout, or he's looking to ground and pound him. I'm very excited for this fight, man.
I tell you why this is the biggest fight for Costa's career, and we'll make it fast. We got a lot to talk about, but If we're talking about, if we're comparing
Joel Romero.
Joel Romero versus Jariah Hall, Romero is a better wrestler than Jariah Hall. He's more agile than Jariah Hall. To my opinion, he's faster than Jariah Hall. Jariah Hall has become very one-dimensional in his game. And if he doesn't seem to knock you out, he pretty much gives up and he gets knocked out. That's what he's known for. But he's also known for his spinning back kick. But the point is, this is Costa's toughest fight he'll ever fight. And the best thing about this for Costa is that he's taking this at the right time. Young guy, he can learn so much from this fight if he loses. If he wins, we start seeing this guy in a whole different world.
Yeah.
So,
and it could be the winner between Whitaker versus Kevin Gastelum, who's happening either later on this year or the beginning of next year. So, a lot of things going on in the welterweight division. I agree with you, it's beyond stacked, and we're looking forward to seeing who's going to be the champion by the end of the year, right?
I hear you, man.
Let's get to the next one, bro.
All right, guys. So we got we're going to jump into UFC, UFC on Fox 30. Just so you guys know, it's a very quick recap of what happened on UFC on Fox 30. Which Corey Anderson versus Glover Teixeira.
Yeah.
Corey Anderson grind out Glover Teixeira. Teixeira is unfortunate, really two steps out of this octagon.
Yeah, unfortunately, he looked really washed. He didn't look the same Glover Teixeira that Chuck Liddell was talking so highly about.
I think he was that, and he's just not that anymore. You know.
I know. Like I said, he's a little washed up at this point in his career. It's unfortunate that he took such a big break from the UFC, and now he's just not looking. He doesn't seem like he's putting everything together. It doesn't seem like the same fighter that we saw. Ever since he got knocked out by Rumble Johnson, he hasn't been the same. But good job for Corey Anderson, man. He not only deserved that win, but you know, who are they going to put him up against next? That's the biggest question for Corey Anderson right now. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going on with Corey Anderson going forward. Shout
out to Corey Anderson, young guy. Endless amount of possibility for someone like that as well. And then we also had Anthony Smith going against Shogun, the veteran Shogun Rua.
Yeah. This is so unfortunate. It got me a little depressed. As we know, Shogun Rua winning this fight would have gotten him a title fight against Daniel Cormier for the light heavyweight champion, because it would have been 4 wins in a row for Shogun Rua. But Jimmy Smith, what a motherfucking monster this kid.
Is this guy just beating every single veteran they're putting next to him?
He's the next veteran killer, you know, the UFC veteran killer. He knocks the shit out of fucking Rashard Evans, and now he knocks the crap out with a tremendous elbow to the face. Sorry, who he just finished beating?
Shogun.
He just finished beating Shogun on the main event, which makes it even crazier. So,
you know what would be nice to see him fight is Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva coming back. He's gonna
Jimmy
take.
Smith?
Yeah.
That could be another veteran. Yeah.
My point exactly.
Right.
You want to start putting veterans against this guy. You want to make a name for him. He's a Brazilian killer at this point, and he's beating veterans. He's doing such a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
So that being said, shout outs to Anthony Smith. He is the truth, and he has his head on his shoulders correctly. And by that I mean he's a family man. He's a great fighter outside. He has it all put together.
Yeah.
He's someone to look forward to. UFC on Fox 30. Around the corner, this has happened in Calgary, Canada. First fight is Oliver Abdulmazir versus Alexander Hernandez.
Okay, I don't know too much about these fighters.
So only thing I will say, Oliver's the Canadian. He's the more of a vet. He's the veteran going into this fight.
Okay.
He's been doing very well as of late in the UFC. He's coming up to back-to-back wins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not 100% sure who Alexander Hernandez is.
I'll pick Alexander Hernandez.
Oh, that's right. We're doing predictions, aren't we, son?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I got the Canadian. All right, I got the Canadian Olivier.
And we can't really, I can literally talk about this fight because I really don't know these fighters, but I'll pick Hernandez. What's the next one?
Next fight, we got the questionable best fighter, women's fighter of all time, which is interesting how they're giving her the third fight in this thing on a free UFC pay-per-view, not a UFC pay-per-view event. This is actually free on FX. Is it? Yeah, it's free on FX. We have Joanna
Jędrzejczyk.
Thank you. Versus Tasia Torres.
Yeah, Tasia Torres. This is one of the biggest fights for not so much Tasia Torres, but for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. if Joanna loses this fight, this is gonna set her back way back. We have to remember one thing. Rose Namajunas beat her the first time. They gave her a rematch right after that, and then she loses yet again unanimously, all to Rosa Namajunas. If she loses to Tecia Torres, you're getting back of the bus, man. It's unfortunate, but you are. This is the biggest fight for Tecia Torres and the biggest fight for Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So for that reason is why you guys need to tune in, because bombs it's fireworks in that between both of them. Tecia Torres is a motherfucker, man. And if you're not, it wouldn't surprise me, should I say, if Tecia Torres takes her down and beats her by decision.
I got Joanna winning this fight. I really believe that there's only two people that should be really, really far on top. And don't get me wrong, no disrespect to Torres, but Joanna's just in a whole different level. She really is in a whole different level. And the crazy part about it is, it's one of the few things that you would want to see a third fight versus Rose.
It's a very entertaining fight, but I'm gonna contradict you on this one, and I'm gonna tell you that I'm going for Tecia Torres. I believe that Tecia Torres is gonna get it done again. Take her down, ground and pound her, and win by decision.
I think Torres doesn't stand a chance versus Joanna, my personal opinion, but we'll see. Time will tell. Next fight, another fight that we're in shock that is free on FX.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that headline.
It's a co-main event, guys. Jose Aldo versus Jeremy Stephens. Holy shit!
This is fireworks. I don't believe anybody's gonna take anybody down. It's gonna be a stand-up brawl, and somebody might hit the pavement. I picked the last one. I'll let you pick this. Oh no, I picked the last one. Man.
I know who I got winning.
Jeremy Stephens has been proving over and over again that he has the heaviest hand in that division. And I believe because of that, we're going to see Jose Aldo flat on his ass, man. I don't see Jose Aldo getting out of the second round.
I would go against you, but I'm not. I have Jeremy Stephens. I was going to pick Jeremy Stephens from the gates.
Yeah.
I think he does have the biggest power, the biggest right hand in that division. And I will say, I think Jose Aldo is not the same fighter who he was. He's contemplated retirement several times, and at this point, he is not 100%. I have Jeremy Stephens by TKO because I will tell you this much: this fight is not going to decision.
I really don't believe that this fight is going to go to decision.
I wouldn't be surprised if no one walks out of that after the first round, let alone the second round. Yeah. Because if they're going to try to figure each other out the first round, someone's going to figure themselves out in the second round.
I gotta say one thing about this card is that it's really close. It's not like, yes, I'm picking Tecia Torres and I really do believe in Hernandez, and I'm picking now Jeremy Stephens, but anything could happen on this card. This card, I mean, everybody that I'm picking right now could completely lose this fight because it's really close down to the wire. This is not just a one-handed side. You know what I mean?
But shout outs to the UFC for making this free, by the way. Yeah, I think the reason why I say that is, first of all, it shows you how stacked of fighters are in that division, and how many fighters the UFC has that they can put a fight like this free on FX.
I agree.
Fucking bogus. Last but not least, my man Eddie Alvarez, who I met, he's the fucking truth, versus Dustin Poirier. Jesus Christ. Well, that's probably what they fight in Canada. Unbelievable. This is the rematch from their first fight. Eddie Alvarez ended up taking the big victory in the first fight. This fight is the fight to make. So I love what the UFC did. You're going to put two stand-up bangers in there, bro. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing about both of these fighters is they take massive punishment and they don't go down. This is a fight for the fans. Yeah. And this is why the UFC decided to put this at the main card and a free card.
Who you got winning this fight?
I'm going Eddie Alvarez on this one, bro.
I believe that Dustin Poirier has a better technique than Eddie Alvarez, and for that I'm picking him. I think his last performance against Showtime Pettis showed why he not only deserves to be in this division, but also deserves that title fight. I think with a win, which I do believe he's going to win, and he's going to knock out Eddie Alvarez, mark my words, Eddie Alvarez is going to get knocked out in the first or second round. Give this man a title. He deserves it. He's a good-looking dude. You can promote him easy, and you know, he's been winning his last few fights.
Yeah.
Give this man a title.
The thing about Poirier that he's been showing a lot is how much of a fighter he's involved into. Eddie Alvarez, don't get me wrong, he probably still, I mean, he's still the man. He's probably evolved somewhat, but Eddie Alvarez, you know what he brings to the table. You don't know what you're gonna get out of Poirier, and the reason behind that is because he's evolving. Yeah. He brings something new to the octagon every time he's in the octagon, and there's still so much growth for this guy. Yeah. The way he takes in information is a little different than most fighters do.
He's a young dude. He's very composed. Tremendous jab.
His
over right hand.
His overall MMA game has been polishing so well, and the way he's putting things together is what's been so impressive about him. I still got Eddie Alvarez, and I'm just being biased, dude. I met the guy. He's a great guy. I'm not going against him. You know what I mean? But not to say that I don't think he's going to win. I mean, this is somebody who I don't see Eddie Alvarez getting knocked out. I just don't. I could see Poirier getting knocked out. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
All right, my people. Catch us on the Will and Rock MMA podcast on YouTube, on Instagram, and on Twitter. We see you guys next week. Peace.